Hello and welcome to Bring the Ring, a new way to handbell. My name is Brenda Austin, and it is my sincere hope that through connecting with us today, you will be inspired to use handbells to make a difference, to add value to our world. Let's get out there and bring the ring. Hello and welcome to Bring the Ring. My name is Brenda Austin, and we are looking to connect with one another, connect with our composers, and talk about some handbell music so that we can better equip each other for making great music. Today, we welcome Sandra Tucker. She is a well-known composer for handbells, choir, organ, flute ensemble. She's also a fabulous clinician. She's the handbell editor for Alfred Handbell, a division of Jubilate Music Group. She served as a church musician for most of her life, and recently her husband Roger and many four-legged friends have moved to Houston. So let's welcome Sondra Tucker. Hey Sondra, how you doing?
Hi. I'm doing very well. How are you?
We're just chugging along here.
Same here.
A little cold up here. I kind of wish that I could be outside where you are, but
Well, it's cold down here too.
is
So
it?
you would not think it's cold, but we freeze down here when it's 40 degrees. So,
Yeah, we'd be in our glory. But so you recently moved to Houston. So what's that like for you and Roger? And tell us a
well,
little bit.
yeah, we moved at Christmas a year ago. So Christmas of 2019. The Packers came the day after Christmas and the moving van unloaded us on like December 30th. So I don't really recommend that. It was just the way things had to be. But so we've been here a year and we'd lived here before. So we're familiar with the city. People have said, well, what's it like being back? And I said, well, I really couldn't tell you because by the time we were unpacked and settled in, we were in lockdown. So I've just been at home. I don't have really a sense of being anywhere, frankly, at the moment.
I believe it. But you
Mhm.
came with a bunch of four-legged friends. Tell us a little bit about that.
We have been involved in shelter rescue for years, and we've had some foster failures, and we've got 3 dogs and a cat at the moment. They're not particularly that interesting. They're mainly sleep and bark at squirrels and beg for food. So that's kind of their life. But we love them. They're pretty good dogs, and I hope we don't hear them. They're all kind of laying at my feet at the moment. I hope that they stay asleep.
Well, it'll be okay if we hear from them. I think it's neat that you do that and have taken them in. I wanted to talk today a little bit about Cherry Tree Carol. I did this with my choir for Christmas and I loved it. I just loved it. But talk to us, I'll tell you what I thought of it in a minute, but I want to hear a little bit from you about your process.
Sure. Well, the Cherry Tree Carol is an old English folk carol. It comes from the folk tradition. And it tells the story of Mary and Joseph traveling. And the idea is maybe they were on their way to Bethlehem, but it's unclear. But they stop in an orchard, and Mary says, oh, I'd love a cherry, Joseph. Would you reach up because I'm, so pregnant? Would you reach up and get me a cherry? And Joseph gets a little snippy and he says, well, why don't you let the father of your baby get you a cherry? And so, depending on the version of the lyrics that you're listening to, either Mary commands the tree or Jesus in the womb commands the tree to bend down so that Mary can get a cherry. And she has a cherry, and then they continue their journey. And it's just a really cheerful tune. And when I wrote it, I thought, well, people don't sing that. Congregations certainly don't sing it. And many choirs may have not sung that carol. So I need to pair it with something that people know. And so I paired it with Gloria, which is Angels We Have Heard on High, or if you're Episcopalian like me, it's Angels from the Realms of Glory. And the tune starts with kind of the first few notes of the Cherry Tree Carol, and then it kind of goes into a cascading little motif that's reminiscent of the refrain of Angels We Have Heard on High. It's not exactly the same. And then, so you hear the Cherry Tree Carol, you hear the first part of Angels We've Heard on High, and then at the end, you hear them both together.
Well, we enjoyed putting it together, and it wasn't overly difficult because, we're kind of only rehearsing music right now that isn't overly difficult because we aren't spending as much time in rehearsals.
Right. And I was looking at the score. There are no shared bells and no bell changes, except in the handbells used chart, it calls for a C sharp 3, 4, and 5. But as I was looking over the score, I couldn't find the C sharp 3 and 4. And I thought, what in the world? And then I remembered that after it had gone through maybe even the engraving process, I thought, this thing is 8 measures too long. And I cut, and you were so nice to let me do it. To tighten up that middle section, I cut 8 measures, and that's where the C sharp 3 and 4 were. And we just didn't think about the bells chart, but bells charts are so rarely correct anyway, right?
Well, we try.
There's only one accidental, and it's a C sharp 5, and it plays once. So it's really easy just to play, distanced or without tables. So.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We didn't have any troubles with it. And I noticed that also in the bells used charts. We'll get that fixed for the next printing, but
right, the next printing.
well, my comment with my bell choir when we did, I just kept thinking, isn't it just crisp and clean? I mean, I feel like I should be drinking tea at a bed and breakfast somewhere in England. I love how crisp it is and clean, and those cascading sounds all the bell peals go so beautifully with the Gloria. Just really well done marrying those two pieces together.
Thank you. You're very nice. Thank you.
The more we played it, the more I enjoyed it. So, well, let's listen.
So, Sandra, I'm just really interested to hear how you got into composing.
Oh, wow. Well, this goes back a long ways. The early 90s, probably even. I had started working at a little Presbyterian church, and they had just purchased, even before I started working there, they had purchased 2 octaves of handbells. And it came with the bells and the pads and the tables and some random mallets, as they did, like 1 mallet of each kind of, and some music. And what I discovered was the church had budgeted for, buying the bells, but they hadn't budgeted any money for music. And so once we had run through the music that came with the bells, then I was kind of stuck, and I looked at this, and it was beginning music. And I thought, well, I could write some hymn tunes like this. It doesn't seem too hard. And so it didn't take us too long to expand the set to 3 octaves. We were really going uptown at that point. And so I continued to write music for us to play and stuck it in a filing cabinet when we were done. And then I was reading a magazine from it was before the Fellowship of United Methodists, but whatever the previous organization was called. And they had this magazine, Abingdon Press, and it was a call for manuscripts, for handbell manuscripts. And I thought, well, I've got all these things. And it was Gary Allen Smith, and he wrote me back and he said, we want to do these and put them in a collection and publish them as a book. Well, you could have knocked me over. I was like, what? This is amazing. And they did 2 of those collections. And then, so I, nothing succeeds like success. And so I thought, well, maybe, I can do this. And so I wrote some things, but I was terrified to send to like Hope or Choristers Guild or a big publisher. I was like, oh, I could never do that. So I found this small publisher in Grand Rapids, Lake State Publications, and I sent him some manuscripts and he published them. And then one day I walked in to work and I had a letter from Kathy Mokelbust. And I still have this letter. And it said, I was at a reading session and I saw these pieces that Lake State has published, and I'm doing acquisitions for Concordia. And if you have anything else, I'd love to see them. And I was like, oh my goodness. So I sent her some things and it just kind of took off from there. So it was just this overture from Kathy that kind of really got me into it. So I'm always grateful to her for that, reaching out.
Mm-hmm. I feel the same way about you, because I had written some things and wrote something and you said, hey, I want to publish this. And I was like, oh my gosh. I think everybody has someone to thank for where we've gotten. And when nobody gets there by themselves, it's always somebody that kind of reaches down and helps out. But that's kind of
absolutely true. And it's true in music ministry too, aside from composing. Everything that you do in your church is built on the work that was done before you got there. So
I know that, and that's what kind of this is all about, is just kind of connecting and reaching out and trying to help out one another. So, and especially right now with everything that's going on, we need to do this. We need to reach out to people.
I completely agree.
This is something I totally want to know for myself.
Okay.
How has your composing changed since you started wearing the editorial hat?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. I don't think that it's changed very much at all, because to me, it's 2 separate endeavors. I'm not somebody that just sits down and writes every day as like a spiritual discipline. I write actually when I've got something to say. And I've found that when I sit down and say, I'm going to write something, it's usually doesn't end up too good. And, so I have a lot of partially completed things. So I think for me, the writing is its own thing. And I get inspired when I listen to music. So when sounds pretentious, I don't mean it to be, but when I'm feeling at my most creative, it's when I've been, and it's not bell music particularly, it's choral music or symphonic music or piano music or things like that, when I'm immersed in some other musical endeavor, then I feel like I can come back and maybe bring some fresh thoughts to what I'm writing.
Mm-hmm. I think that's one of the more difficult things about where we're at right now is that, I'm trying to put out, but I'm not being fed enough. I'm not going to concerts. I'm not doing live music enough.
I'm not doing any at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very difficult when you're isolated. You can listen to a lot online, but there's something about being in the space.
Mm-hmm. And creating it yourself with other humans.
Right.
So,
There's
but I do
nothing
see the
like
light
it.
at the end of the tunnel soon.
I know.
Soon.
So excited. But as you say, I think we're coming to the end of it. And so I noticed that little by little, there are more bell choirs that are figuring out a way to get back ringing in some form. So I'm hopeful that, later this spring, over the summer, that things will start really looking up for us.
I feel the same. And I feel like by fall, we should have some form of normal where we're making music regularly. I think our souls just need it. We need to be together and making music and sharing that. So I can't wait.
Me neither.
I wanted you to talk a little bit about your piece, Alleluia, Give Thanks. What can you tell us about that piece?
It's an Easter piece, clearly. But what I like about it is when you use it on Easter Sunday, it's a nice contrast to the big thundering Jesus Christ is risen today sort of pieces. And it's useful not just for Easter Sunday, but for all of Easter tide. And in fact, we use it at communion quite a lot. So it's Easter, but it's also general. And this piece, my arrangement of it is, doesn't have any shared bells, but it does have a key change. So I don't know that there are, and it's got chimes as well, a few chimes. So there's some positions that I really think you'd have to have a table in front of you just for the equipment change, but it's very accessible. And, it's just a sweet, sweet piece that everybody sings, I'm pretty sure. Most everybody uses that.
When I was making the screenshots, the song just kept going through my head and I couldn't get it out.
Exactly.
Well, it's lovely. Let's take a listen. thank you so much. What a lovely piece. Great job.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Well, sure. Just before we go, what suggestions do you have for ringers, directors today?
I think to be patient and flexible and kind. It's tough for everybody, and everybody's got different family situations and different church situations. Everybody's got cares that are specific maybe to this pandemic time that we're living in. And that I think that if we can show some grace to one another, that we'll get to the end and we'll have everybody who's supposed to be back with us will be able to be back, and just be safe and just love one another and just let this unfold as it's going to, and we'll be back. We will be back.
We will be back. And I think that the buzzword for 2021 is going to have to be grace, that we've got to be graceful with one another, graceful with ourselves, and graceful with one another.
Right. I'm a lot harder on myself than I am on others.
Yep. I think many of us could say that. So thank you so much for being here. It was just lovely
welcome.
to chat with you and share your beautiful music. Thank you for your many contributions to not just the Hope catalog, but everyone's catalogs over the years. We all have a favorite Sandra Tucker piece. So thank you for what
you're very nice. It was my pleasure to be here, and so good to see you.
Good to see you. Take care.
Thanks for joining us today. Brenda Austin is the handbell editor for Hope Publishing, where we are equipping musicians for excellence. Visit hopepublishing.com or call 1-800-323-1049 for all your music needs. For questions about this episode of Bring the Ring, contact Brenda at hopepublishing.com. Our show notes can be found on our Facebook page or in the comments below.